Hi. I did a video the other day on Kshama Sawant and how she was being rejected by the Labor Council, but I wasn't able to go really deep into why. Well, I mean, I have ideas on why she was rejected for the Seattle City Council as far as endorsements go for the 2019 elections, but it says here on Wednesday night, the Martin Luther King County Labor Council, a coalition of local unions, endorsed Seattle School Board member Zachary DeWolf for City Council in District 3. DeWolf became the endorsement, saying in a text that he was humbled and grateful. In a statement, Council member Kshama Sawant, whom the Labor Council endorsed in 2015, called the vote unfortunate and added that she's still proud to be endorsed by 12 unions and counting, representing nearly 60,000 workers. That's what it's saying, but is Kshama Sawant really endorsed, or is she really representing 60,000 workers? I mean, you can say that you're representing 60,000 workers, but in reality, are those 60,000 workers accepting your representation? It says here, the council didn't just endorse DeWolf, they rejected Sawant 54 to 24%. Delegates from the Teamsters, the Building Trades, and Seattle Police Officers Guild and the firefighters all opposed her, according to two sources. And as Crosscut pointed out, council member Teresa Masquati also worked behind the scenes to pressure the unions to drop support for Sawant and back DeWolf. Okay, now I'm going to have to contact Teresa Masquati and ask why she did that, because that's not fair for her to have done that. She pressured the unions to drop support. Now I'm going to ask, when I speak with her, I'm going to ask her what kind of pressure did she put on the unions to drop support for Sawant. Now, if the unions were to drop support for Sawant because of how she was working as far as a council person goes, then if it was bad, if they felt that her being a council member was poor, that she wasn't doing very much for the city, then yes, drop your endorsement of her. But don't be bullied by another city council member. It says here, if you have been reading the newspapers and the recent statements coming from Labor Council leadership, and I know you have, you know that Masquati didn't have to push too hard. We'll get to all of the reasons Sawant had been shedding some union support over the years in a second, but in one of the more interesting votes on Wednesday night came from the teachers union. Okay, delegates from the Seattle Education Association, SEA, split the vote for DeWolf with MLK CLC delegate Justin Vinson voting to oppose him, and SEA president Phyllis Campano voting to endorse him. Over the phone, Vinson said Campano's vote for DeWolf was unusual, given that the full union hasn't yet voted to endorse in the District 3 race. I think it's unusual for our president to throw support behind a candidate without the democratic process taking place first, he said. Campano didn't respond to a request for a comment on that, but said K-12 teachers did not vote against CM Sawant in answer to a question about a rumored lack of support from the teachers during the Labor Council vote. This was another example of how far labor has fallen in the last several decades. Vincent added. And when asked about the overall Labor Council vote against Sawant, we're to a point now where, I hate to say it, where labor is getting crony. There are these backroom deals by leaderships being made, and they don't reflect the rank and file, which means that there's some people that believe in the process. They believe in the republic, not Republican. Don't confuse it with Republican. The republic process, which means that you're guided by the Constitution and the Constitution alone. That you are guided by, you are guided by the law. When the law says that you have to do something or that you can't do something, you're stuck. Democracy, on the other hand, which is not to be confused with Democrat, democracy, on the other hand, is when you can take mob rule. If a majority of the people say, we don't want you to do this, then the majority rules. It says here, Sawant has been pissing off some labor leadership for a while now, starting with her endorsement of John Grant for City Council in 2017. That was the kiss of death. Some members in the Labor Council felt betrayed by that, Vincent said. I think that rubbed a lot of the leadership the wrong way. A lot of the forces who voted for DeWolf voted for them because they felt like they'd been rubbed the wrong way. It says here, Nicole Grant was criticizing Sawant for supporting John Grant. She was also expressing support for partnering with big businesses after winning the fight to raise the minimum wage. You don't want to be a sore winner, you know. You want to be a partner, she told the Seattle Met, by way of explaining the Labor Council's endorsement of Jenny Durkin in the mayoral race that year. Sawant's ardent support for the employee hours tax also pissed off the building trades. After Amazon halted construction on a building it later abandoned, members of Ironworkers Local 86 shut down a Sawant rally at Bezos Balls to protest her support for the head tax. Look, the head tax was failed, even in the beginning. They should have never asked for that head tax. They're not wanting to fix the problem, which is the homeless problem. They want to just patch it. They want to repair it. They don't want to get in there and do any groundwork to repair the base. They want to just put up a little stucco here and a little patchwork there and call it a day. It says here, Monty Anderson, Executive Secretary of the Seattle Building and Construction Trades Council, told The Stranger he supported repealing the head tax when it came up for a vote last year. As I mentioned earlier this week, Sawant's opposition to the new police contract and her support for blocking the bunker pissed off the Seattle Police Officers Guild, the president of which incidentally lent his support for DeWolf. DeWolf initially thanked the SPOG president for his endorsement, but on Friday reversed course and rejected it in a press release. Sawant pissed off the Teamsters. KUOW report, Sawant pissed off the Teamsters, KUOW reported, for perceived meddling in a national contract negotiated by the Teamsters for UPS employees. Sawant is just going around pissing off everybody. She apparently pissed off the SEIU 775, which threw its support behind DeWolf earlier this week, when she refused to support Mesquade's Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights and called her names like establishment and corporate, according to a statement from SEIU 775 Executive Board Member Ed Salonge. I am going to contact Sawant this upcoming week. I'm going to contact her office and I'm going to ask her secretary if she really wants to be in the city council, because she's pulling a Trump. She's pulling a Donald Trump. She's pissing off everybody, hoping that she won't get reelected. Though Sawant voted for the Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights, her decision to speak publicly in opposition to it pissed off council members Mesquite, who cited Sawant's critique of that proposal and another proposal to build affordable housing at Fort Lawton as a few of the reasons that drove her to write to the Labor Council and urge them to support DeWolf over Sawant. Crying over spilled milk, I suppose. In a letter to the Council's Executive Board, UAW 4121 President David Parsons, WFSE 1488 President Paula Lukazik, Coalition of Black Trade Unionist Leaders Claude Burfett, BURFECT, and Pride at Work leader Mike Andrew called Mesquite's letter unfortunate. Sawant, of course, disputes all of this, framing "Let's Work" in reverse. In a statement, Sawant says she was quite saddened by Mesquite's false assertions regarding my position on the Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights for Lawton affordable housing. Sawant says she opposed neither of the bills of rights nor the Lawton legislation with the domestic workers legislation. With the domestic workers legislation, nannies who were not feeling heard regarding the weakness in the draft ordinance, particularly the lack of protection for people facing sexual harassment, reached out to my office, she said. My office supported them and worked alongside them to help win representation on the board being created under the bill. The City Council's Fort Lawton legislation, based on Mayor Durkin and former Mayor Murray's proposals, has less affordable housing for its vast 34 acres than is being built on a single parcel of former Sound Transit land in District 3. Sawant added, I voted for the ordinance saying I support building these 237 units of affordable housing, but it is a monumental missed opportunity to not have built far more affordable housing in the context of the severe crisis. I stand by that position, and I do too. I am really pissed off. It seems like the city of Seattle is saying fuck you to the poor and the ones that can't afford to buy Beluga caviar and other shit like that. Sorry for the cursing, but it was needed. The rich that are moving to Seattle, the transplants that have moved to Seattle for that almighty buck, who the hell do you think you are? It's like you're kicking out all the poor people and making people homeless on top of the homeless that are already there, that's been there for a long time. You guys are like changing Seattle into something different. Seattle used to be a working city. Everybody could afford to live there. The poor, the middle class, the rich. It was a good fit for everyone. Then Amazon took off and brought in 25,000 people from outside the state into Seattle. And then you had these little startups where they realized that they could thrive because the city's not going to be hounding them like they should be hounded on regulations and things. and property owners could buy up real estate and charge whatever in the hell they want because they know the city can't do nothing to stop them. And it's the poor people that are fucking suffering. It says here, Sawant admits some differences between herself and Musquade, noting Musquade's decision to vote for the police contract last week. A federal judge ruled that the city must strengthen the contract's police accountability measures in order to comply with the consent decree. And on that note, the police don't really want to follow the rules. Yeah, they don't want to follow the rules, and when people make them, they get pissed off. It says here, Sawant also disputed the allegations of meddling in the UPS contract. I do not agree that offering my support to the 54% of the Teamsters who voted against the contract constitutes interfering, but rather it was my solidarity with the Teamsters rank and file who wanted to continue fighting for a better contract. She was all for the people working there not bending over and taking it. They wanted a better contract and she was trying to help them get it. Sawant added that she fought for Teamsters 111 or Teamsters. She fought for Teamsters 117 Uber and Lyft drivers, Teamsters 174 school bus drivers, Teamsters 174 sand and gravel workers, Teamsters 763 emergency medical technicians, and Teamsters 1224 Amazon pilots. Yeah, she said she fought for them. Vinson said none of the opposition to Sawant from the Labor Council Wednesday came as a shock. It didn't shock him. I think there's a larger conversation. I think there's a larger conservative movement taking place right now in the King County Labor Council, he said. It's this weird crony careerism. People are getting into these positions and fighting militarily when it comes to challenges from the left, but straight bootlicking the bosses when it comes time to work with them. Vinson said these gestures don't reflect the rank and file and think there's plenty of support, at least from the teachers union, for Sawant. As for whether these endorsements will have much of an impact on the race, at the end of the day, it will be who can turn out the canvassers for each candidate, he said. On that, I will bid you adieu. Have a good night, Seattle. This has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things. Have a good night, Seattle, and all points beyond. And on that note, I shall let you go. This has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things. Have a good night, Seattle, and all points beyond. And on that note, I shall let you go. This has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things. Have a good night, Seattle, and all points beyond.